She used 5 men to break me. I used the truth to break them.
The electric razor buzzed against Tommy Brennan's neck when I noticed my wife's perfume clinging to my fingers. Not her usual vanilla scent. Something sharper, more expensive. Something that didn't belong in our house. "You're shaking, Jake," Tommy said, watching me in the mirror. "Everything all right?" I steadied my hand and continued the fade. "Just tired." But I wasn't tired. I was calculating. Elise had kissed me goodbye that morning, pressing her lips against mine with that practiced sweetness she'd perfected over 12 years of marriage. The kiss tasted like lies. "There you go," I said, brushing the loose hair from Tommy's shoulders. "Same time next week. Wouldn't miss it." The bell chimed as Tommy left, and I found myself alone in the shop with the scent of that foreign perfume still haunting my nostrils. My phone buzzed. "Elise, working late again tonight. Don't wait up." I stared at the message for a long moment, then walked to the back office. The old desktop computer hummed to life, and I logged into our shared iCloud account, something Elise had forgotten we'd set up years ago when she got her first iPhone. The photos loaded slowly, vacation pictures, random selfies, shots of her morning coffee. Then I saw it, a photo taken 3 hours ago in our bedroom. Elise in black lingerie I'd never seen before, her back arched, looking directly into the camera with an expression I hadn't seen directed at me in years. The photo was tagged for deletion, but hadn't been removed yet. My chest tightened. I clicked on her messages. "Elise to work. Miss you already. Can't wait for tonight." "Work. You looked incredible in that dress. Take it off." "Elise. Patience, detective. Detective." The razor slipped from my numb fingers and clattered to the floor. I closed the barbershop early and drove home in silence. Elise's car wasn't in the driveway. Good. I needed time to think. Inside, I went straight to our bedroom and opened her laptop. She'd never been careful about passwords, always used our anniversary date. The screen filled with browser tabs, hotel booking sites, lingerie stores, and a Gmail account I'd never seen before. The email address was registered under her maiden name. Inside were conversations with 5 different men, each thinking they were her only secret. I screenshotted everything, my hands moving with mechanical precision. But it was the voice memos that made my blood run cold. Audio message to Raina, her friend. "I'm practicing crying for when I file the restraining order. Jake's been so controlling lately, checking my phone, questioning where I go. I need it to sound believable, you know? He grabbed my wrist so hard it left marks. How does that sound?" Raina's response crackled through the speaker. "Perfect. Stick to the script. And make sure you get photos of any old bruises from the gym." I sat in the dark for an hour, listening to her plan my destruction. She'd researched divorce lawyers, looked up domestic issues shelters, even practiced her victim voice until it sounded authentic enough to fool a judge. The front door opened at midnight. "Jake, you awake?" Elise called out sweetly. "In the bedroom," I replied, my voice steady. She appeared in the doorway, hair slightly mussed, lipstick gone. "Sorry I'm so late. The files were a nightmare tonight." "Must have been exhausting," I said. She leaned down to kiss me, and I caught that same foreign scent, cologne mixed with her sweat. "I'm going to shower," she whispered against my ear. "Don't fall asleep." As water ran in the bathroom, I opened her purse. Inside was a motel key card, a receipt for wine she hadn't brought home, and a business card. Detective Ron Keller, Metro Police Department. I memorized the badge number and slipped everything back exactly as I'd found it. When Elise emerged from the shower, I was lying in bed with my eyes closed, breathing slowly and evenly. She slid in beside me, her skin still warm and damp. "I love you, Jake," she whispered into the darkness. "I love you too," I lied. Detective Ron Keller walked into my barbershop the next Tuesday like he owned the place. Tall, broad-shouldered, with graying temples, and the kind of swagger that comes from wearing a badge for too long. "Walk in okay?" he asked, settling into my chair without waiting for an answer. "Of course, detective," I said, fastening the cape around his neck. "Just a trim?" His eyes met mine in the mirror. "You know who I am?" "Says so right on your card." I held up the business card I'd lifted from Elise's purse, then slipped it back into my pocket. "Found it in my wife's things. She's been having some trouble with break-ins in her neighborhood." A flicker of something, concern, guilt, crossed his features. "Your wife?" "Elise Forster. You might know her from the insurance fraud task force. She consults sometimes." I ran my fingers through his hair, testing the texture. She speaks very highly of your dedication. Right, Elise. He relaxed slightly. Good woman, very thorough. I selected my shears and began cutting. She works late a lot these days. Fighting crime, I guess. Important work, he said, but his voice had an edge. Takes real commitment. I'm sure it does. I worked carefully around his ears. She's been so dedicated lately. Sometimes I wonder if she's getting too involved with her cases. What do you mean? Oh, you know how it is. She comes home exhausted, distracted. Sometimes I wonder if she's getting in over her head with dangerous people. I caught his eyes in the mirror. People who might take advantage of her dedication. The room fell silent except for the whisper of scissors through hair. Your wife's a grown woman, Keller said finally. I'm sure she can handle herself. Of course. I moved to the back of his head, working close to his scalp. Still, a husband worries. Especially when she starts keeping secrets. The scissors paused. Secrets? New clothes, new perfume, phone calls she takes in private. I resumed cutting. Working late every Tuesday and Thursday like clockwork. Keller's jaw tightened. Maybe you should trust your wife, Mr. Forster. Oh, I do, completely. I stepped back to examine my work. She's exactly who I thought she was. I reached for the electric trimmer. Just need to clean up the edges. The razor hummed to life, and I worked with deliberate precision along his hairline. When I reached his left ear, I let the blade drift just a fraction too close to his skin. Oops, I said as a thin line of red appeared. Sorry about that. Keller jerked forward, touching his ear. His fingers came away bloody. Happens sometimes, I said, reaching for a tissue. Occupational hazard. Our eyes met in the mirror, and for the first time I saw uncertainty in his expression. No charge for the cut, I said, unfastening his cape. Professional courtesy. That night, I worked until dawn. I created a detailed timeline of Elise's movements, cross-referencing her location data with motel receipts and restaurant charges. I organized screenshots of her messages by contact, building profiles of each man she was seeing. Detective Ron Keller, Tuesday and Thursday nights. Preferred the Sunset Motel on Highway 9. Simon Matthews, married banker. Wednesday afternoons during his lunch meetings. Marco Rivera, 24 years old, unemployed. Weekend mornings while I worked. David Chen, Elise's former boss at the insurance agency. Monthly meetings that coincided with her consulting payments. Tyler Brooks, personal trainer at her gym. Early morning sessions that explained her sudden fitness enthusiasm. Each file contained screenshots, location data, and voice recordings. I was particularly proud of the audio evidence. Elise had unknowingly backed up dozens of voice memos to our shared account, including detailed conversations with each man and planning sessions with her friend Raina. But the most terrifying evidence was her practice sessions for filing false domestic issues claims. I had 23 separate recordings of her rehearsing her victim's story, perfecting the tremor in her voice, timing her tears. I bought a burner phone and created anonymous email accounts. Then I began my research into each man's vulnerabilities. Detective Keller had gambling debts and a suspension in his file from 3 years ago. His ex-wife had filed complaints about missed alimony payments. Simon Matthews was stealing from his company's pension fund. Small amounts, but consistent. His wife had no idea about their real financial situation. Marco Rivera was dealing steroids out of his apartment. Elise was probably getting her supply through him. David Chen had been skimming insurance settlements for years. Elise knew because she'd helped him cover it up. Tyler Brooks was running an illegal supplement operation through the gym, selling untested compounds to desperate clients. By sunrise, I had enough evidence to destroy all 6 lives. But I wanted more than destruction. I wanted control. At 7 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Elise. Won't be home until late. Important client meeting. I knew exactly which client she meant. I made the first move on Thursday morning. An anonymous envelope arrived at the Metro Police Internal Affairs Division containing photographs of Detective Keller entering the Sunset Motel with a woman whose face was carefully obscured. The photos were time-stamped and included his patrol car's license plate. 2 hours later, another package reached the desk of Maria Santos, an investigative journalist who'd gotten her start writing exposés about police corruption. Inside were bank records showing unusual cash deposits into Keller's account, along with a note. Detective gets paid well for looking the other way. I watched the story unfold from my barbershop chair as I trimmed Mr. Henderson's beard. The local news picked up Santos's story by noon. Metro detective under investigation for misconduct. My phone buzzed. Text from Elise. Emergency at work. Can't make it home tonight, but I knew where she really was. I'd planted a GPS tracker under her car 3 days ago, a tiny device I'd ordered online and installed while she showered. She was currently parked outside Keller's apartment, probably trying to comfort him through his crisis. That evening, I made my second move. I called the IRS tip line using the burner phone and reported David Chen for tax evasion, providing specific details about his insurance fraud scheme and off-the-books payments to consultants. I even gave them Elise's social security number and suggested they audit her recent consulting income. Then, I hacked into Elise's private Instagram account, the one she thought I didn't know about, and began downloading years of photos and videos. Most were innocent, but scattered throughout were images that told a different story. Expensive gifts she couldn't afford, trips she'd claimed were work-related, intimate moments with men who weren't her husband. By midnight, I had everything I needed to begin phase 2. The cracks started showing by the weekend. Detective Keller was suspended pending investigation. The story made the front page of the Metro section, complete with a photo of him leaving the police station with his badge and tool surrendered. Elise came home Friday night looking haggard, claiming she'd caught a bug. "It's all over the news," I said over breakfast Saturday morning. "That detective who got suspended, Ron Keller." She choked on her coffee. "What about him?" "Corruption charges. Internal Affairs is investigating him for taking bribes." I showed her the newspaper. "Says here they have photos of him meeting with known criminals." Her face went pale as she read the article. That's terrible. You said you knew him from work, right? The insurance task force?" "Barely," she said quickly. "Just professional meetings." "Well, I hope you weren't too closely associated with him. These things have a way of spreading." She excused herself to use the bathroom, and I heard her whispering urgently into her phone. When she returned, her hands were shaking. "I need to go out," she announced. "Raina's having a crisis," but the GPS tracker told a different story. She drove straight to the Sunset Motel and stayed for 3 hours. That Monday, the IRS arrived at Chen's insurance agency with a warrant. By Tuesday, the local business journal was reporting irregularities in the company's books. Chen was fired by Wednesday, and his consulting contracts, including Elise's, were immediately terminated. Elise's mood grew darker each day. She snapped at me over trivial things, spent hours on her phone in hushed conversations, and started drinking wine with dinner instead of her usual tea. Thursday morning brought the next crack. I'd sent an anonymous tip to Simon Matthews' wife about his gambling debts, along with bank statements showing the missing pension funds. She filed for divorce and alerted his company's board of directors in the same day. By evening, Simon had blocked Elise's number and changed his work schedule to avoid her calls. "Bad day?" I asked when she came home with red eyes and smeared makeup. "The insurance agency is being audited," she said. "They terminated all consulting contracts pending review." "I'm sorry, honey. That's terrible." She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in her expression. Suspicion. Fear. "How long have we had that shared iCloud account?" she asked suddenly. "Years," I said. "Why?" "I thought I deleted some old photos, but they're still showing up on your computer." "Storage issues, probably." "I can call Apple if you want." She nodded slowly, but I could see the wheels turning. She was starting to connect the dots. That night, she changed all her passwords, but it was too late. I already had everything I needed. She found the flash drive on her windshield Friday morning. I'd placed it there at 3 a.m., a simple USB stick containing a single video file, security footage from our bedroom showing her practicing her domestic issues story in front of our mirror, complete with fake tears and rehearsed bruises. The footage was timestamp verified and legally obtained from our own security system, something she'd forgotten about when she moved into victim mode. She stormed into the barbershop at closing time, her face flushed with rage and fear. "We need to talk," she said, locking the door behind her. I was cleaning my scissors, each blade gleaming under the fluorescent lights. "Of course, have a seat." "Don't play games with me, Jake." "I know it was you." "I'm not sure what you mean." I continued polishing the steel. "But you seem upset. Maybe you should sit down. The flash drive, the police investigation, Chen getting fired." Her voice cracked. "You've been watching me." I looked up then, meeting her eyes directly for the first time in weeks. Yes! The simple admission hit her like a physical blow. She staggered backward, gripping the chair for support. How long have you known? About the affairs, 3 weeks. About the false domestic issues charges. Since the night you practiced your victim speech in our bedroom. Her face went white. Jake, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I set down my scissors and picked up the electric razor, testing its weight in my hand. You're sleeping with 5 different men while planning to destroy my life with false accusations. Did I miss anything? It's not what you think. Detective Ron Keller. Tuesdays and Thursdays at the Sunset Motel. Simon Matthews. Wednesday afternoons while his wife thinks he's working. Marco Rivera. Weekend mornings while I'm at the shop. David Chen. Monthly consultations that were really monthly Zex sessions. Tyler Brooks. Early morning workouts that had nothing to do with fitness. Each name made her flinch, as if I'd struck her. You recorded everything, she whispered. You recorded everything. I just listened. I turned on the razor and its electric hum filled the shop. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? The new perfume, the different schedule, the way you started flinching when I touched you? You were building a case against me while cheating half the city. I never meant for it to go this far. You practiced crying, Elise. 23 different recordings of you rehearsing how to convince a judge that I abused you. You researched women's shelters and divorce lawyers while texting your lover that my hands were stupid barber hands that would never touch you again. Tears were streaming down her face now, but they weren't the practice tears from her rehearsals. These were real. Please, she said, we can work this out. I'll end it with all of them. We can go to counseling. No, I said quietly. We can't. I moved toward her, and she backed against the wall. You destroyed Detective Keller's career. You got Chen fired. You ruined Simon's marriage. Her voice was desperate now. How many more lives are you going to destroy? All of them, I said. Every single person who helped you plan my destruction deserves exactly what they're getting. She tried to run for the door, but I was faster. Not to hurt her, I would never touch her in anger, but to make her understand that running was pointless. The GPS tracker in your car has been logging your movements for 3 weeks, I said calmly. I have video footage of you entering every motel, audio recordings of every conversation, screenshots of every text message. Your phone backup to our shared account included location data, call logs, and browser history. You documented your own betrayal so thoroughly that I didn't even need to investigate. You gave me everything. She slumped against the wall, defeated. Oh, what do you want? She asked. I want you to experience exactly what you planned for me, I said. Complete destruction with no way to fight back. I unlocked the door and held it open. Go home, Elise. Pack whatever you need for a long trip. Because tomorrow, everyone in your life is going to discover exactly who you really are. She left without another word. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I put the final pieces in place. At 3 a.m., I called the DEA tip line and reported suspicious activity at Detective Keller's address. I provided specific details about his gambling debts, unusual cash deposits, and recent meetings with known pills traders, including Marco Rivera, whose steroid dealing operation I'd carefully documented. The anonymous tip included Keller's patrol routes, schedule information, and the location where he'd hidden his emergency cash stash. I knew about the money because Elise had mentioned it in one of her voice memos, bragging about how her corrupt cop boyfriend kept $10,000 taped under his kitchen sink. At 4 a.m., I planted the final piece of evidence. I'd purchased a small quantity of cocaine 3 weeks earlier, not from Marco, but from a dealer 2 cities over who didn't know my name or face. The pills were packaged in evidence bags I'd bought online, complete with fake police property tags. I slipped into Keller's apartment building using a key I'd copied from Elise's purse. His apartment was exactly as she'd described it in her recordings, sparse, messy, with empty bottles and unpaid bills scattered across every surface. I placed the cocaine in his police-issued gym bag, buried under dirty uniforms and protein powder. Then I made an anonymous call from a payphone 6 blocks away. This is Detective Martinez, I said, disguising my voice with a slight accent. I need to report suspected pills activity at 1247 Oak Street, apartment 3B. Subject is believed to be Ron Keller, badge number 4821. I have reasonable suspicion he's storing narcotics in his residence. The raid happened at dawn. I watched from my car across the street as federal agents swarmed Keller's building. They found exactly what I'd planted, along with the unexplained cash and evidence of his gambling debts. By 8 a.m., Ron Keller was in federal custody facing charges of pills possession, money laundering, and corruption. My phone buzzed with a text from Elise. "Need to see you. It's important." I ignored it. Instead, I drove to the gym where Tyler Brooks worked. I'd called ahead using Elise's voice, telling him she had an emergency and needed to meet him in the parking lot before his shift started. He was waiting by his car when I arrived, clearly expecting my wife. "Mr. Forster?" he said, recognizing me from the photos Elise had shown him. "Is everything all right? Where's Elise?" "She's fine," I said. "But we need to talk." I handed him a manila envelope. Inside were photographs of him selling illegal supplements to gym members, along with copies of his text conversations with Elise about their affair. "What is this?" he asked, but his face had already gone pale. "Insurance," I said. "Stay away from my wife, and these photos disappear forever. Contact her again, and they go to the police and your employer." He nodded quickly, his hands shaking as he held the evidence of his crimes. "Smart choice," I said. By noon, Tyler had blocked Elise's number and requested a transfer to another gym location. 2 down, 3 to go. The arrest began Tuesday morning. Marco Rivera was taken into custody during a routine traffic stop that wasn't routine at all. I'd called in an anonymous tip about his steroid operation, providing his license plate, daily schedule, and the location where he stored his inventory. When police searched his car, they found enough illegal substances to charge him with intent to distribute. His phone contained months of incriminating text messages with clients, including detailed conversations with Elise about performance enhancers and their weekend meetings. David Chen was arrested at his home Wednesday morning. The IRS had expanded their investigation beyond tax evasion after discovering evidence of insurance fraud dating back 7 years. Elise's consulting payments were flagged as suspicious, leading investigators to uncover their entire scheme. The news reported that Chen had stolen over $2 million from insurance settlements, using a network of fake consultants to hide the money. Elise was named as a person of interest in the ongoing investigation. Simon Matthews lasted until Thursday. His wife's divorce attorney had discovered the missing pension funds and reported the theft to his company's board. Security footage from his office building showed him accessing the computer systems during off hours, and his browser history revealed months of gambling site activity funded by stolen retirement money. He was arrested at his desk, let out in handcuffs while his coworkers watched in shock. That left only Elise. I found her Thursday evening at Raina's apartment, both women drunk and crying. I'd followed the GPS tracker to the complex and watched through the window as they tried to make sense of the chaos surrounding them. "It's too coordinated," Raina was saying. "Someone's targeting everyone connected to you." "Jake knows," Elise replied. "He's known for weeks. He's been planning this whole thing." "But how? You were so careful." "I was stupid." The iCloud account, the voice memos, everything was backed up to his computer. He heard me practicing the domestic issues story. Raina's face went white. "Oh my God, we're screwed." "Not yet," Elise said. "I can still file the restraining order." Even if he has recordings, it's his word against mine. And I have bruises from the gym that look recent enough. What about all the guys getting arrested? Coincidence. Bad luck. There's no way to prove Jake was involved. Elise's voice grew stronger. "I stick to the plan. File tomorrow morning, get the restraining order, then file for divorce with domestic issues claims. His evidence becomes inadmissible if it was obtained illegally." I smiled in the darkness. She still didn't understand how thoroughly I documented everything. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Tomorrow was Friday, exactly 4 weeks since I discovered her first affair. Time to end this. Friday morning arrived gray and cold. I opened the barbershop as usual, going through my normal routine of cleaning equipment and preparing for the day's clients. At 9 a.m., I called the FBI field office and asked to speak with Agent Sarah Mitchell, the federal prosecutor handling the Keller case. "This is Jake Forster," I said when she came on the line. "I believe I have information relevant to your corruption investigation." Agent Mitchell arrived at my shop an hour later with 2 other agents and a court stenographer. I prepared everything, labeled file folders, chronological evidence timelines, and a detailed written statement explaining how I'd discovered the conspiracy. "Your wife was involved in a systematic scheme to file false domestic issues charges," I explained, handing over the voice recordings. She documented everything herself through our shared cloud account. These recordings show her practicing her victim's story and coordinating with Detective Keller to have me arrested on fabricated charges. Agent Mitchell listened to 3 recordings before requesting copies of everything. "We'll need you to testify," she said. "Of course." At 2 p.m., while I was cutting hair, federal agents entered the insurance office where Elise was meeting with a lawyer about filing domestic issues charges. She was arrested on charges of conspiracy to commit fraud, making false statements to federal officers, and conspiracy to file false police reports. The local news cameras caught her perp walk. Elise in her carefully chosen victim outfit, modest dress, minimal makeup, calculated vulnerability, being led away in handcuffs while reporters shouted questions about her connection to the corruption. Investigation. Raina was arrested at her home 2 hours later on charges of conspiracy and aiding in the filing of false reports. The FBI had found our voice recordings of her coaching Elise through the victim rehearsals. I closed the barbershop early and drove home to an empty house. Elise's car was impounded as evidence. Her clothes still hung in our closet, but they smelled like that foreign perfume, the scent of other men and broken promises. I poured myself a scotch and sat in my recliner, watching the news coverage of what reporters were calling the marriage conspiracy, a complex scheme involving corrupt police, insurance fraud, and false domestic issues charges. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Forster, this is Maria Santos from Channel 7 News. I was wondering if you'd be available for an interview about your wife's arrest and the corruption scandal she was involved in." "No comment," I said, and hung up. At 8 p.m., my neighbor Tom knocked on the door. "Jesus, Jake," he said when I answered. "I just saw the news." "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Tom. If you need anything, groceries, someone to talk to, Sarah and I are here for you." "I appreciate that." He lingered on the porch, clearly wanting to ask more questions. "I just can't believe it. Elise seemed so normal." "She was very good at pretending," I said. After Tom left, I walked through the house one final time, turning off lights and checking locks. In our bedroom, I found the black lingerie from the photo, tag still attached, hidden in the back of her drawer like evidence of a crime she'd planned but never committed. I threw it in the trash. At 11 p.m., I received a call from the county jail. "You have a collect call from an inmate," the automated voice announced. "Will you accept the charges?" "No," I said, and hung up. She called back 4 more times. I declined each call. Saturday morning brought a knock at my door. Elise's mother stood on my porch, her face red with tears and anger. "How could you do this to her?" she demanded. "She's your wife." "Was," I corrected. "And I didn't do anything to her." "She did it to herself." "The police said you recorded her private conversations." "She recorded herself. I just listened to what she backed up to our shared account." Mrs. Patterson stared at me with undisguised hatred. "She loved you." "No," I said quietly. "She loved the idea of destroying me. There's a difference." I closed the door and returned to my coffee. By Monday, the full scope of the conspiracy had made national news. Detective Keller pled guilty to corruption charges in exchange for testimony against Elise and the insurance fraud ring. Chen's company was under federal investigation, with losses estimated at over $5 million. Marco Rivera and Simon Matthews were both cooperating with prosecutors, providing details about their relationships with Elise and her knowledge of their crimes. Tyler Brooks had disappeared entirely, probably assuming he was next. I reopened the barbershop Tuesday morning. My first client was Tommy Brennan, the same man whose haircut I'd been finishing when this all began. "Heck of a thing," he said, settling into the chair. "Your wife being involved in all that corruption?" "Ex-wife," I said, fastening the cape around his neck. "Still, must be tough." I selected my scissors and began cutting. Sometimes people aren't who we think they are. Ain't that the truth? We worked in comfortable silence for a while. Outside, life continued as if nothing had changed. Cars passed by, people walked their dogs, the world moved forward without missing a beat. "You know what's strange?" Tommy said eventually. "What's that?" "I always thought she seemed too good for you." "Beautiful woman like that, married to a barber." He caught my eye in the mirror. "Guess I was wrong about that." "Guess you were." I finished the cut and brushed the loose hair from his shoulders. As Tommy paid and left, I noticed Detective Martinez walking toward my shop. We'd spoken twice during the investigation. and he'd seemed impressed by the thoroughness of my evidence collection. "Mr. Forster," he said, entering the shop. "How are you holding up?" "Well enough." "Good. I wanted to let you know the DA's office will probably need you to testify at several trials over the next year." I expected as much. He studied my face carefully. "You don't seem surprised by any of this. Should I be? Most people would be devastated to discover their spouse was planning to destroy their life with false accusations." I met his gaze steadily. "Most people don't marry sociopaths." He nodded slowly. "Fair enough. Well, if you need anything, counseling services, victim support, the department has resources." "I'm not a victim, detective. I'm a survivor." After he left, I locked the door and flipped the sign to closed. It was only 3 p.m., but I was done for the day. I walked to the back of the shop where I kept my personal items and opened the safe I'd installed 3 months ago. Inside were copies of everything: the audio recordings, the photographs, the financial records, the GPS tracking data. I'd given the FBI everything they needed to prosecute the case, but I'd kept backups of every piece of evidence. Not because I expected trouble, but because the documentation had become a habit. Elise had taught me the value of keeping detailed records. I locked the safe and walked to the front window. Across the street, Maria Santos was setting up with her camera crew, probably hoping to catch me leaving for another attempt at an interview. I turned off the lights and pulled down the shade. In the darkness, I could hear the familiar hum of the electric razors, still plugged in and ready for tomorrow's work. The sound that had once made me think of rising tension now felt like a lullaby. Justice, I had learned, wasn't always loud and dramatic. Sometimes it was quiet and methodical, like a good haircut, precise, thorough, and exactly what the customer ordered. I walked out the back door and drove home to my empty house where no one was waiting to lie to my face or practice victim speeches in my bedroom mirror. For the first time in months, I slept peacefully. The next morning brought news of Elise's plea bargain. She'd accepted a deal for conspiracy charges in exchange for testimony against the remaining defendants. Minimum sentence, 3 years federal prison. Her lawyer issued a statement claiming she was a victim of psychological manipulation and coercive control, but the voice recordings made her claims impossible to believe. You can't fake 23 separate rehearsals of false domestic issues accusations. I drove to work as usual, unlocked the shop, and began my morning routine. At 9 a.m. sharp, I flipped the sign from closed to open and took my position behind the chair. My reflection stared back at me from the mirror, the same man I'd been 4 weeks ago, but different somehow, calmer, more focused. The bell chimed as my first customer entered. "Good morning," I said, my voice steady and professional. "What can I do for you today?" Life moved forward.